So today we're talking about a real faith. And sometimes real faith looks like wrestling through truth and then staying on the other side. There's a verse in Hebrews chapter 11. It's verse 1 right at the beginning, and it says, "Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." Faith is kind of an interesting word when it comes to the journey with Jesus. Faith actually begins our walk with him. It says in Ephesians chapter 2, verses 8 and 9, it's by grace you've been saved through faith, a gift from God, so that no one can brag about it. So, in other words, when we believe in faith, we find salvation in Jesus. But the interesting thing about faith is, as we've just read, we lean into the reality of our relationship with Him. As we stay connected in rhythm with Christ, our faith begins to actually produce something here on earth. It says in the verse that faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the conviction of things not seen. So when we wrestle through hard truths, there are times where we have questions, and those questions may be brought on by life situations that we see unfolding before us. Or maybe it's just as we're reading through the scriptures, there's things we're having a hard time reconciling in our mind. And what I want you to know is that our faith begins to produce assurance. It's interesting because as I think about this idea, I've heard so many different stories told where, somebody is having to take one extra step off the ledge. You've probably heard some kid story or an idea of this uh, exhibiting faith where you just got to believe that even though you can't see it, you got to take the next step and you feel that there's footing there. And you could tell that in so many different ways. But why that's important is to get to the place where you step off the cliff, where you can't see where you're going. Is it takes a faith to get to that point, but it's when your foot hits the platform that you couldn't see that was there, your assurance is found. In other words, you didn't really believe. You got to the place where you were going to risk trying to believe. You wrestle through the idea of believing. Then you take a step of faith, and it's there that you find your assurance. Really, what I'm saying is, I think on this journey with Jesus, it's important for us to know that it's okay for us to ask questions and wrestle through the things that we're having a hard time believing. When we do this, it brings assurance that can only come from the God of the universe who saved us from the beginning. So I want to encourage you, lean into those places where you want to trust God to answer hard questions, where you want to wrestle through hard things and trust that God can bring the assurance that no human person can bring without his power.